But yeah, welcome to another episode of the Pleasant Peninsula podcast. I'm Steve, and this is Dan, and we're going to slow talk you through our amblings and adventures here in the great Upper Peninsula.
Yeah, this is Dan over here, actually.
Oh, yeah, I'm over here. Good thing this is audio only.
Great. Yeah. Hi, I'm co-host Dan. Good to be talking with you today.
Well, is it spring yet, Dan?
No. So we got that. I think this is a continuation of the last episode where we kind of got some snow, and it put a halt to most of my springtime activities except attending the UP Boat Sport and RV show.
Right. How was that?
Where everybody's excited to buy all of their summer, boats and four-wheelers, and and we're buried in snow. It was good. I was there for Saturday and Sunday selling raffle tickets for Start the Cycle. We were actually at the Sports Rack booth. So we had our raffle bike. We got a couple e-bikes. A set of 2 e-bikes that are like path cruisers, and then one like a Trek EXE 9.5, like more of a trail bike, enduro style, full suspension.
Oh, okay.
That's the other bike. So we had those there for people to see and then buy raffle tickets. And then we also had those cutouts where you could put your face in them and take a picture, and so that was kind of neat. Our I don't know if people noticed, but there's like a little, like we'd said, the blue spotted salamander is like a little mascot of those, and we've named him Drizzle. So he's on there, but he's not. No one sees his name, but he's just kind of up in the corner. He's like by the QR code.
Okay.
Little salamander, but the picture itself is like either we had a bear, we had like a bike with, it was like you were in the ET. It was like how ET was in the basket on the bike.
Mm-hmm.
That was one of them, which is kind of funny. And then there's turtles, a couple turtles.
Okay. So is Drizzle, is that a reference to the weather for
I think so. We kind of had
triggers the salamanders to come out.
Yeah, right. I mean, we had the salamander was on. It was part of Marquette's what's going on with that around town, and we just kind of had a few names that people had suggested at our board meeting, and everybody just seemed to like Drizzle, so that was as far as it went. So
nice.
But do you have them in your yard? You said, were they going across your yard?
I
wonder if that halted. Did the salamander migration stop because of the weather, or is it like happening through the snow?
Yeah, I have no idea. I don't know, like, how cold is too cold for them to be out and about. I have seen them in my yard before, but not in the springtime. It's been in the fall. 2 different years. I forget, the first time was probably 4 or 5 years ago. And I think I was mowing my grass like for the last time for the season, and I was kind of going slow and like working around some tighter spots, and I saw something moving in the grass, and why would there? It was like early October probably. It's like, why would there be a snake right now? Well, it was a blue spotted salamander. And then last fall when I was winterizing the camper, there was one that looked like it was getting ready to hibernate. It had kind of burrowed in underneath this bin of stuff and didn't seem very active. But then when I moved it over to the woods, I came back later to check to see if it was still there, because I wasn't sure if it was alive or dead, and it had moved away. So I think it was just very lethargic.
After you talked about those, and you were talking about the veneral pools, you got me doing some research, and I don't know if we want to discuss this right now or save it for later on. But,
yeah, we can.
I thought it was really cool. The things I learned were pretty neat about that. Like there's also, so if you have a proper veneral pool, it'll dry out, and but it's good for salamanders and for wood frogs.
Yeah.
And also something called fairy shrimp. Do you know that there's fairy shrimp in the woods, in these ponds?
Right.
So
I know, so weird. And
But
most people would have no idea.
yeah, I mean, now I gotta go look. I gotta try to find these things. But the
Right.
frog, those wood frogs will actually like they can almost completely freeze. Like they're burrowed in the like shallow mud, and they over the winter time they basically freeze solid, and then they thaw out and come to life again. So yeah, that's a pretty good adaptation for a frog.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, these pools are they're so neat because the average person would not think anything of them. They look like a puddle, and they're very short lived, typically. Like I think by definition, it's they're only around for a season. In the spring season with the snow melt and the rain. But yeah, just the amount of I think different species that use them as part of their life cycle is really fascinating, and things you would have you wouldn't think when you think of the northern U.S. in springtime. You don't think of shrimp and salamanders and
No.
frogs typically.
I don't really think of freshwater shrimp at all, but
Right.
I guess they're around. So,
Yeah, I haven't seen any. It from the videos I've seen, it looks like you can see them with the naked eye. They
no.
don't look like they're microscopic or anything, but yeah, yeah. I think with the melt coming here, so it's supposed to warm up quite a bit here in the next few days, kind of slowly into the 40s, and then probably going to hit 60 this weekend, I would think. And with the amount of snowpack I think that's left, there should be pretty good opportunity to see these pools. And I think for those who are looking closely, maybe find some of these creatures living there, or not living there, but temporarily.
Yeah, I know where I'm gonna go look at a few. So there's an area right off the Iron Ore Heritage Trail, right in Marquette, and I know of a spot that I've walked. It's kind of off of the Iron Ore Heritage Trail, but it's a cut across path, and there's definitely a couple pools, or at least one pool, and then there's some swamp area. That's some cattail kind of wetlands.
Okay.
Those might not be considered the pool, but yeah, I've got to check that out now, and I know there's frogs and stuff there. So I think the secret,
Right.
what it said. So if you want to find out more about those vernal pools or ephemeral pools, that Alexis Dahl has a really good video where she talks to some Michigan Tech like research students, and I was watching that a little bit, and anyway, she gets into some good detail on it. But sounds like the secret is they can't have fish. So if there's fish in them, they'll eat they're too much of a predator for the frog eggs and the salamander eggs.
Right.
So
Yeah, and I think too that's that whole seasonal nature.
yeah, around that they dry up. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, Alexis Dahl, I don't know if I've seen her video yet. I need to watch it. But I know she did a kind of a deep dive into those, and then there was a short one I saw on social media not long ago from the Michigan Nature Association, and it's just called Ephemeral. I think if you search that on YouTube, it's about a 3.5 minute video that just kind of talks about the people who are going out and kind of researching these. And yeah, it's not something I had really any awareness of until probably the last few years. But yeah, kind of one of those hidden things. You have to know where to look and have to be paying attention, because I think this time of year, especially right now when it still looks like winter, the woods can kind of feel like they're sort of dead. Like there's there's no way we're gonna get out of this eternal winter.
It'll never end. Yeah.
But yeah, even like these vernal pools, and I even some of the taller trees, around our house, you can see like the beginnings of buds, just with the length of daylight now.
Mm-hmm.
So it's coming slowly, but it's
Yeah.
coming.
Yeah. How was your? Speaking of what was that organization that you played some guitar right at the
Yeah,
Peter
yeah.
White Library for the one of the ecological groups or
Yeah,
nature
yeah.
groups?
They go by UPEC, Upper Peninsula Environmental Coalition. It was cool. It was kind of a small, intimate thing, um, but yeah, very very neat. I listened. I didn't go in person because my day ended up being a lot busier than I anticipated. But I watched and listened to some of their live stream from the keynote talk, which was all about the push for the rocket range
Oh,
up Conner Road 550, and kind of how that all played out so far. And the gist of it, from what I got, is that the project's kind of at a standstill, I think, at least in that location. So I don't know.
yeah.
I don't
Was
know
it
if they're going to look
was it
for alternative spots, or if they're
Powell
going to focus on
Township?
their. Yeah,
Did Powell
yeah,
Township say not allow it
yeah,
at
yeah.
this
It sounds
point?
like the township board actually. I guess I don't fully understand how like local politics work, but they did um, something with their like clarifying the language of their vision statement, or it had to do with like the way the zoning ordinances work, and then aligning with their, I forget, vision statement's not right, but um
Planning?
yeah, they're what's the word I'm looking for, their, yeah, like their plan for the future that communities do. The name's escaping me right now, but anyway, just yeah,
Yeah, it's
interesting to
escaping me
hear.
too.
Interesting to hear
So
all the things going on, and but yeah, the music was cool. I got to play some songs I hadn't played in a really long time, which was fun, and I think for a group of people who I think more than anybody would have an interest in those types of songs, specifically about celebrating the UP.
mhm.
That was the name of the event. So yeah, it was a nice time.
Nice.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and I spotted so at the dome when I got to Northern's campus for the rec show, kind of stepping back into that story. I heard some tweeting in the distance, and so I pulled out my bird app, and lo and behold, it was a Northern Cardinal
Okay.
tweet, which is that was like the bucket list bird that I'm trying to attract to my feeder.
Yeah.
Um,
Did you see it?
I did, yeah. Well, so a
Or
few days
you did have
a
you had a
few days
picture of it,
before
right?
that, yeah, a few days before that, I had heard some crows in my front yard, and I took out the bird app because there was some chirping that went along with that, and it actually ID'd a red or a Northern Cardinal, but I didn't. I was kind of like, I don't know. There was some song sparrow and some crows, and there was a whole lot of a robin. It was morning. It was like the morning ruckus of the birds. And so I was like, well, maybe, but on campus there, that was the only chirping I heard was that, and it ID'd it as the cardinal. And so I turned around and kind of followed where I thought it was coming from, and I saw one up in a tree. It wasn't super clear; it was pretty far away. I tried to take a picture of it, but I'm gonna say it was that I captured a picture of a cardinal, and then it flew across the street into someone's yard. So I'm thinking they got a feeder or something.
Okay.
So
Well, that's
so
cool
yeah.
to know that they're around. I don't think, yeah, I haven't seen one here. I know I've seen one elsewhere, I think, when we've been traveling and stuff, but that's really cool because I wasn't sure, how common they were around here. Um, Speaking of songbirds, so this evening, even though it was still 25 degrees and wind coming off the lake, um, I went out with my dogs and we hiked the songbird trail. Um,
Nice.
along Harlow Creek out to Little Presque Isle, and it was nice because I think, I mean, nothing beats going to a place like that during like the peak of the summer. But I think going on a day like today, that there was like nobody there, so
Right.
I think the kind of solitude you can find in places like that, when the weather isn't as nice, is kind of neat. But I used my Merlin bird app, and all I heard was chickadees, which I didn't need the app to tell me that, because they were saying
Right.
chickadee dee 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 dee. But it was a little hard to hear. It was kind of windy, though there were some decent waves.
Well, you're close
on
to the lake,
and-
right? Yeah, you're close to the
Yeah.
lake there. How was the snow? Was it light on snow? Because you're so close.
There was still a good amount of snow there. The trail was pretty packed down. The beach was not bad. Most of the like drifts and ice and stuff on the beach had melted. There were a couple kind of cool ice formations and stuff, but yeah, it's always neat going out there. That's kind of become a favorite of ours the last few years. And well, and I think I referenced this last time, but I was trying to think of the name of one of the guys who was, I don't know if it was his idea or if he just played a role in getting that trail built, but I found the book that I was thinking of.
Great.
It's by Lon Emmerich, who I hadn't heard of before, but he has quite the resume of things he did around the area. So he was a professor, and I think at NMU, and then at Northern Arizona University, he was a professor of speech pathology. Wrote multiple books, but then it says he developed 2 nature trails, a unique songbird walk near Autrain, and an interpretive path describing habitat at Little Presque Isle, north of Marquette. But he has a chapter in here all about Little Presque Isle and kind of how that tract of land, not just the island itself, but the area along Harlow Creek there on the east side of County Road 550, kind of how all that got set aside. It ended up becoming, it's not, I don't think the state calls it, it's not called like a nature preserve or anything, but there's special rules and regulations, right? You can't camp there. You can't have campfires there. And actually, he's got a whole chapter in here called White-Throated Sparrows.
Oh, nice.
So, but yeah, he goes through the season. So he's got a winter section and a couple chapters, and then summer, spring, autumn, and just travels around the UP. I haven't read the whole thing yet, but
I wonder if he expects if the Songbird Trail is home to the white-throated sparrow.
well, I started reading the White-Throated Sparrow chapter about 10 minutes before we started talking, and it starts off and they're camping near Harlow Creek. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think a lot of the stories in here are set kind of in that area. But he's got a section. He talks about the Sylvania Wilderness. He's got a section about the Porcupine Mountains.
Nice.
He's got a section about
What was
the
the title?
McCormick. It's called The Superior Peninsula.
Okay.
Seasons in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. And I think it's a little bit... Well, it's actually not that old. Well, okay, 1996. So
96? Okay. I just found one from him that I think is also a good read. It's from 2005, and it's called You Wouldn't Like It Here, A Guide to the Rural Upper Peninsula of Michigan. Which is,
I haven't read that, but I've seen the title.
He's
in his
warning.
list before. Yeah.
Yeah, he's
I love
warning visitors about the climate, the insects, the wildlife, and other potential dangers. Yeah, you wouldn't like it here. I mean, I think we've got a lot of after COVID, there's been an influx of remote workers to this region, which is great. But I think a lot of locals would prefer to tell people, hey, you wouldn't, you don't need to come here. You wouldn't like it here.
Right.
And maybe this winter, I think this winter is finally going to deter some people because
it's might
been dragging on,
Yeah, that reminds me of I think on the Yoopers Tourist Trap sign, they have a thing that says, like, come here and spend your money, but please don't move here.
Well, then I thought, most remote workers are working from home. So as it snows and fills the driveway up, they're just looking out the window like, look how beautiful this is.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to go to work because I'm working from my home. So maybe it won't deter them. So.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one of those things that,
the more the merrier.
I think there's plenty of people who find, who quote unquote discover the UP later and, sometimes choose to move here and are okay with those, whether it's the weathering the weather or the, there's not a ton of, outside of the Marquette area that, there aren't a ton of resources. And if you're looking for a bustling city and nightlife,
it's always been an area that people come to vacation to, and there's always been tourist traps for people to visit. So yeah, like the mystery spot. I mean, I spent some time around Sault Ste. Marie, and that's up with the Sioux Locks there. That's a pretty heavy tourist area. So that whole little strip of shops by the Sioux Locks is kind of like a bunch of t-shirt shops and ice cream and fudge. It's kind of like Mackinac Island, Mackinac City. They're set up for that.
Yeah.
So
and that whole end of the UP, that far eastern end it just is a lot closer if you're coming up from downstate.
Yep, you can head over the bridge, get a little taste, and then head back. Right.
Right. Yeah, the mystery spot. When I was pretty young, we lived downstate for a time, and I remember coming up. I think at one point we were coming up almost every weekend. Spent a lot of time in the car across the bridge. I think a lot, but I remember I was seeing that, and of course, as a kid, it really intrigued me, and I still haven't been. So I guess maybe this needs to be the summer I find out.
Hold
what's
on,
at the mystery
did you
spot.
just say when you were coming up here as a kid? Am I finding out for the first time that you're not?
No,
you weren't born in the UP?
No, born here. Lived most of my life here. Just we lived downstate for a few years.
Oh, goodness.
I think around the time I was in kindergarten. So,
have you recovered from that?
Yeah, it was brief.
Okay. We moved to Wisconsin for a couple years. I've recovered. We actually go back and shop there, so it was okay.
Well, I did that too. So, yep. I've been out of the UP on both East and West Ends. So, but yeah. Love thinking about those kinds of places, and some of them are kind of just what some of them are just tourist traps and just kind of silly, but I think some of them are there's some really neat offbeat gems out there too. One that comes to mind that I kind of think was kind of late to jump on the train for was the Jam Pot up in the Keweenaw.
Oh yeah. I think Anthony, who came up here for their show, was it not Anthony Bourdain?
Gordon
it was,
Ramsay.
Gordon Ramsay. Gordon Ramsay went to the Jam Pot, I think.
Yep. Yeah, I remember seeing on some of the, I don't know if Word on the Street did a piece, but I know there were a couple social media pages and things that he was spotted in Houghton and a couple different places, and he filmed that. I think was it Uncharted? Was that the name of the show, or Uncharted? One of those.
Sounds
two.
Right. I watched it. Yeah, I watched the episode. So, yeah.
Yeah, it was neat watching him go up and see how they do the thimbleberry jam, and think he went spearfishing in Munising on a shipwreck. Right. I think they just saw a bunch of bass, but
Yeah.
They were trying to find burbot. Um, and then yeah, he went partridge hunting, which was neat. But
Yeah, I wonder if that one's on, if you can find that streaming
yeah,
for a rewatch.
I found it. I think if you have a Disney Plus, maybe, or Hulu, I know those kind of sometimes are packaged up. There's a National Geographic section.
Okay.
I know we have Disney Plus. I know you can go. There's a Nat Geo section, and then you can find it there. But
I was just looking when we were talking about the mystery spot. What is that lookout right when you head up 75 over the
yes,
bridge? There's like
Castle Rock.
Castle Rock. That's what it is. I couldn't think of the name of
Mhm.
that. I've never been on. I've driven past it so many times.
Yeah.
I've never paid the money and climbed up.
That's
to
one I
Castle
did.
Rock.
I did go up. I think when I was a little bit older,
How's
but
how's the view from there?
it was nice. Yeah, I mean, you definitely can see the bridge and the whole Straits area. I think when you go there, there's like a little gift shop, and they have like a big Paul Bunyan and Babe the Ox outside.
Nice.
But yeah, kind of neat. It looks like such a fragile structure, like the rock. Like it looks like it could crumble at any
Yeah,
minute.
it does.
It's that limestone.
Well,
Didn't that happen to
Part of Pictured Rocks fell.
yeah,
like
Miner's Castle.
Miner's
'Cause
Castle
it-
fell in, or part of it fell in off of Pictured Rocks. Yeah.
I think if you find older pictures of it, it had two turrets. They kind of resembled a castle with two towers. Yeah, and it's just the single thing now. And then probably 3 or 4 years ago, there was a whole wall of rock that came tumbling down out there too, because somebody on one of the boat cruises had
Yeah.
taken a video of it.
That was like backup. Was it Backup Brian or Backup Bob? Backup Brian, maybe. They made a beer named that at Driffa and Marquette,
Oh gosh.
because it was the guy on the pontoon kept yelling at him like, "Back up, Brian, back up!"
Right.
And then the wave kind of splashed their boat.
Yeah, that'd be scary.
I gotta look
See,
that up.
Seen videos of like up in Alaska and stuff where like a piece of a glacier breaks off and does that, but that sort of thing doesn't typically happen around the UP.
Yeah, Pictured Rocks is a huge tourist attraction. National
Yeah.
Lakeshore. Is that
Right.
what that's?
Yeah, I think probably. Well, I don't know the numbers, but that's got to be one of the most visited spots up here. I mean, the whole town of Munising is, it's booming during the summer and sometimes during the winter. It's kind of a hot spot for snowmobiles too. I know we did quite a few snowmobile trips, kind of basing there when I was younger. Then you can kind of, head and get the whole east end of the UP from there and head west toward Marquette if you want.
Yeah, and they do
I
ice.
think-
They do some ice climbing right around there too. There's some waterfalls to see.
Yeah. There's a ice fest. I think is that in February sometime, where they do that.
Probably. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think with Pictured Rocks, there's kind of the main scenic spots, a lot of people know, but it's a big area, and there's a lot of things, for having grown up here and spent a lot of time in that area, there's a lot I haven't seen. I know there's the whole like Beaver Basin Wilderness within the National Lakeshore.
Haven't been to that. Yeah.
That kind of is it's like, yeah, it's within the National Lakeshore, and it's like a federal designated wilderness area around. I think there's Beaver Lake and Little Beaver Lake, and then a couple of creeks that come out that feed out into Lake Superior from there. But yeah, it's definitely. I mean,
Yeah, it's a destination.
It's a destination. It's not a secret destination either. It's very well known and traveled, but also I think worth seeing in the winter. Lots of snow, but if you can put on some skis or snowshoes or go by snowmobile, there's a lot of cool things you might see without the summer crowds. In fact, so H58, Elgin County H58, the road that kind of is the gateway to all the different Pictured Rock stops.
Uh-huh.
Probably, I don't know if it's halfway between Munising and Grand Marais. Might be a little further up, but eventually they stop plowing during the winter, so only a portion of that road is open, and it just becomes snowmobile trail.
Mm-hmm.
And that portion of the trail it can be really fun to ride because it's like a highway for snowmobiles, essentially.
H58, I took a ride down H58 for work. We were doing some work there was something to do at one of a lighthouse project. I was working for a engineering firm, and it was one time in my life when I picked up a hitchhiker.
Oh.
So,
how'd that turn out?
And it turned out just fine. I just brought him to it. So I was cruising down H58, and there was a guy on the side of the road looking for a ride, and he something happened with his truck. He was trying to put his boat. He was fishing, and something happened at the boat launch. I don't remember the details, but he was just standing on the side of the road, and he lived on H58 near Munising, so I just drove him a few miles to his house.
Yeah, I was going to say, if there's a hitchhiker on H58, they're either like backpacking or fishing, right? or they're a local. Yeah.
Yeah, I talked to him first. I mean, I asked him what was going on. I got a feel for it, but seemed friendly enough, and I don't know if I'd recommend that, but that's my one hitchhiker story. So in the UP, you can roll the dice with that if you want, but
it's definitely.
Did you get? Speaking of, so I kind of missed this in the last episode, but April Fools, we just had April. April just came. April 1st came and went, and did you get fooled at all this year with April Fools?
Well, so I get I have a couple email subscriptions that I get. Word on the Street's one of them, and then Man About Town, which is the guy who used to do Word on the Street, his
right.
newer one. And I forget which one it was. Was it Brian? It might have been Brian Cabell, Word on the Street.
He notoriously does a fake newsletter on April 1st.
And I know that. It was the first thing I read when I woke up in the morning, and I was still kind of half asleep, and I was reading about like a new hospital and like a dog park, and then I wasn't really paying attention. I was like, oh, okay, that's interesting. And then I was reading it again later. I was like, wait a minute, 30 by 70 feet. How are they gonna make a duck? And I was like, oh, okay.
I got fooled. I got fooled, and I don't know if it was which one of those it was, but it was something. It was on social media, and it was that Marquette Mountain, who is under new ownership, was building. They were building like a lookout tower from the top of the mountain, and kind of like an egg-shaped lookout tower with like suspended bridges to get there. And I thought, what a great idea. I thought that's a great idea. It's just going to cost a lot of money, but if they invest in that, and they'll get the tourists here to see from the top of there.
That's got to be a play on I don't know the name of the hill, but the ski hill in Lower Michigan that has that sky bridge.
Oh, does Boyne have that? Those are
Yeah, Boyne Mountain, okay. I think. Yep.
And it said hashtag April Fools after, in the description, and I was like, oh, but I thought, if you create something like that, it does bring people in there. And I was talking to somebody else, and they were mad because they were like, oh, sure, they're not going to improve the hill for snowboarding and skiing, but they're going to go ahead and build a lookout tower for people to come there. But
I feel like a lot of the ones they were like within the realm of plausibility this year, which, if you weren't paying attention, I think would have been easy to.
Well, and that got me thinking about it's not an April Fool, but have you seen over by Germfast? They have Benny the beard fishing troll. He's like
Yes.
a giant wood sculpture of a troll with a
And
beard. And
I
it's
could have gone to visit him last August on my way downstate, and I
yeah.
thought about it, and I was like,
He's
that's
he's
maybe
30
another
feet
time.
long. He's 30 feet long and he's like 14 feet tall. It says here, and made out. I think the artist or the sculptor who does it, who's from Denmark. You know, like the outfitting company paid to have him built. Right.
Yeah.
So it is a tourist attraction, and they charge you to look at him. He's on the river on their property, I think, in Germfask. But yeah, it's cool though because this guy. Thomas Dambo, he's built several of these around the world, and there's one in the UP. There's a Benny. If you're going to see his sculptures, and I think they're made out of recycled wood or pallets or things like that. But
Yeah, definitely an oddity. Something I want to. I'll have to make a point if we're in that direction. I think the kids would think it was cool too. I think it would be cool to see him from the river, like from a canoe or something.
yeah,
I want to say Kristen
Manistee
did
River.
a discovering episode about him,
oh,
and
okay.
I think she might actually come down the river like in a kayak or something, and yeah.
I saw him
It sounds like he's surprised a few people who were coming down the river and didn't know about it.
Well, I started seeing, I don't remember if it was last summer or the summer before, I started seeing people posting pictures on social media. And I'm like, what is this? Like, I didn't know. I thought it was up in West Ishpeming or the Western UP somewhere.
Sure.
And then I looked a little closer and realized it was more over by Germfask. Yeah. So, which I drive by there quite a bit. So, but it looks like $10. $10 you can see the troll, unless you can get on the Manistee River in another location for free and paddle but past them. So, but something like that, I'm sure they'll probably gives people a reason to stop by.
Germfask is one of those like blink and you'll miss it little obscure towns up here. But
Yeah, right.
funny enough, it reminds me. So what's become one of my favorite books is set in Germfask. It's kind of an obscure book. I don't think it's very easy to find, but it was written, I think, in the 70s by a guy named Edmund G. Love, who I think he wrote a relatively well-known book called Subways Are for Sleeping, which was like, I think, made into a Broadway play or something. But anyway, this guy, the book essentially is him and his buddy, and it's I think it's like semi-fiction, like, you know, it's based on a true story. But it's about him and his buddy who came up to the UP in the 1930s because the one guy's grandfather had property on one of the Manistee Lakes in Curtis area.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it had been left to them in the will, or to that family in the will, but no one knew anything about it. No one even knew the grandpa owned it. He never talked about it, never used it. And so they came up, and of course it's 1930s. There's no Mackinac Bridge. You know, there's not a lot of major highways. And so they end up coming up to Germfask and spending the good part of the summer up here. And they were two boys who grew up, I think, in Flint area, so they were used to city life. And hijinks ensue.
Nice.
But it's just funny because it's set in Germfask and then Blaney Park, just south of there.
Mm-hmm.
Which Blaney used to be a kind of a big sportsman's resort back in the day. You can still see the remnants of it now, but they used to have a golf course and I think cater to out-of-towners.
Mm-hmm.
Would come up in the summertime.
Did you see The Marsh King's Daughter? That movie was, or that story was
I
written
haven't.
about. I think it was supposed to be the Seney Wildlife Refuge or something, maybe. But it's set in the Upper Peninsula. They come across the bridge, and
Yeah.
I'm sure it's mostly filmed on
I've
studios
heard quite a
and
bit
whatever.
about
But
that one. I
yeah,
know, because it's based on a novel, right? I think
yeah,
it's based on a novel set up here. Um, yeah, I've heard quite a few people talking about that one. I don't read a lot, but when I do, I love stuff that's set in the UP.
I wonder how many people have drank a Two Hearted beer, Bell's Two Hearted, and wanted to come up and see the Two Hearted River, or
Right?
wondered what the story was behind that. So
Yeah.
there's some
Well,
Hemingway,
I think you
history.
actually had told me about the documentary about the
Yep.
artist behind the label, but
Yeah.
I watched like a teaser for it, and I think I think Dave Chappelle was doing a stand-up show. uh it must have been in Kalamazoo.
Kalamazoo,
Yeah,
I think. Yep.
yeah, and he referenced, I think he had a Two-Hearted Ale and was, making a joke, but why is there a fish on the label, like what is that?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, there's a lot. The UP, I think, has a lot more connections to, like, prominent folks in world and American history,
Mm-hmm.
than people sometimes realize. Ernest Hemingway, of course. The
Yeah.
Two-Hearted.
Well, he's got a cabin. You were published in the Walloon
Walloon Writers Review.
Writers Review, and
Yeah.
I think there's a Hemingway cabin on Walloon Lake
Yeah.
down
Yeah, I think
down
that's
south of Petoskey. That I'm probably gonna have to swing by there next time I'm in the area. Check that out.
right. Yeah, I know. I've seen they have a little plaque up on the east branch of the Fox River, up north of Seney, where where that big Two-Hearted River story was set.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Nice.
but
Yeah.
kind of off the beaten path. You wouldn't know it was there unless you went looking for it. So,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I spent the weekend. I upgraded my bird feeder setup, and I purchased another feeder, and I've been trying to like hang them. I've got like a long pole. Actually, it's my roof rake, and I'm trying to hang the feeders up into the tree branches to keep the squirrels away. So we'll see how that works out. But that's my
how are
my
those
latest
safflower
project.
seeds working?
I haven't. I've just laid them out and they've disappeared. So I don't know if they just fall off of if the squirrels kick them off of there. But I haven't filled a feeder with them to see if any birds eat them or not. So, but the pine siskins, I think if that's how I say it right, they've been just kicking or knocking all the seeds out of the feeder. They just basically knock them out. They're looking for a certain. So I had a mix in there, and they'll just like kick out all the seeds, looking for whatever nugget they want. So I changed it over just to black oil sunflower, and I set up a. Oh, my dog's banging on the door. Sorry about that. I set up a thistle feeder for the finches. I think finches in those pine siskins like that. So they're on the thistle feeder, and they don't kick that all around. And then I emptied out the spring mix and just switched that with black oil sunflower.
Okay.
So, yeah, we'll see. It's been
Yeah.
the birds have been coming by. It's been a little slow, but got the chickadees and some nuthatches, woodpeckers. My couple varieties of woodpeckers, and I don't know. Somehow I'm gonna get a cardinal to come in. I've had a blue jay occasionally. A blue jay will come by, but
I did see a
not
couple
not
of
this
those
year
over
yet.
the winter.
Yeah.
Out in the woods. They're one of the. There's not a lot of activity always going on in the woods during the wintertime, but I did on some of the warmer days. I did see some blue jays.
Mm-hmm.
You know what's crazy about blue jays, and maybe most people know this. I didn't know it until recently, which I'm embarrassed as a science teacher. But so evidently their feathers aren't actually blue. they're gray, but there's some sort of something with the optics and the light that makes them appear blue when they're together, refracting at the certain angles. They're
Oh,
I
it's
think
like
it's similar.
two-tone.
I think peacocks are the same way.
Uh-huh.
And there's a name for it. I gotta look it up now out of curiosity.
I know they're kind of aggressive. Like if you get a blue jay, they'll chase the other birds away.
Yeah.
They're kind of an aggressive feeder, but whenever I've had one, it didn't stick around very long. So, and I know I had one where it was in a tree, and I let my dog out, and it would I think it was almost swooping at the dog, but yeah.
It's just called light scattering. So.
Oh, yeah. So they're
I
that's
guess,
interesting. Not really blue.
Yeah. Yeah, which is really fascinating. Apparently, blue is a pretty rare color in nature. I'm not sure why. I know I've seen articles and things about that, but
speaking of blue, I was thinking of bluebirds, and I don't know if we I think I might have mentioned that. I'm not sure if we get the bluebirds up here as much, or they kind of like fields, but I think if you they like little bluebird houses. So that was like the next step besides the seeds. I thought maybe a bird house or two might be something to try.
yeah.
I don't know if my backyard's really set up for that, or if predators would get them if I put them in the wrong spot. But I think bluebirds really like a little birdhouse.
Mm-hmm.
If you can keep like sparrows out of it or other birds that'll like take over their nest.
Right.
But, might be worth a try. Little birdhouse. Yeah.
You know where I've seen, so I can't even pinpoint a specific spot, but there's been a couple times I've been out paddling on a river or lake, and I'd see just some birdhouses like along the way, and I would sometimes see red-winged blackbirds using them, like in in more marshy areas and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had a little birdhouse. My grandpa for a while was building birdhouses where he'd use old license plates to make the roof, which is kind of neat.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I have one. I should do that. Yeah.
We I think we put it out for a while and nothing moved in. I mean, the only bird without us doing anything, the only birds that really take up residence around our house are the robins. They've built nests under our deck, like in the boards underneath. They built one on we have a spotlight like above the garage.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so but I did take down, we had a feeder that has sat outside for the last few years and nothing has touched it. So I got as far as taking it down, and it's whatever's in there is, moldy and gross, and so I have to dump it out, give it a good cleaning, and maybe get a variety of stuff and see if we get any. Maybe move it too, because I think it was hanging underneath our back deck, so it was not a very visible area. And probably not something the robins were going to be interested in anyway. So.
Yeah. What are some good topics for next time? I thought maybe for some guest stars or guest interviews,
Right.
We could shoot for the moon and try to invite like Joe Pera to be on.
Yeah, that's always been in the back of my mind for podcasting. I think you, when you brought up Charlie, I liked your idea about not talking about his comedy and his sketches.
He's into birds. I've heard him discussing birds and just going up to camp and stuff. Yeah.
So with someone like Joe, I think the trick would be how do you find stuff that he hasn't been asked, in a bunch of other interviews and stuff, because of course everyone wants to talk about the show, everyone wants to talk about his comedy, but yeah, that'd be an interesting one. I think pull some deep cuts. And
I think he might actually be into the bean arch, the gardening and the tomatoes, and his interest in all things like Marquette. Like he was pulling some deep stuff that
some of the
like the rocks, iron ore,
some of the local references he got from around here. I'm really impressed with because
Yeah.
I think he's from like Buffalo, New York, isn't he?
New York, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So.
And I think the show they were based kind of out of Milwaukee, like that's where
Mm-hmm.
their production
Mm-hmm.
studio is happening. So if you see some of the outdoor neighborhoods in that, I think they're actually around Milwaukee area.
Right.
And
Yeah, I
then
noticed some of the restaurant scenes and stuff are too.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yep.
But
But
I mean, yeah, but a lot of the outdoor stuff, like the episode where they went up Sugarloaf.
mhm.
Um, there was an episode where he it's like the beginning of the episode, and he actually Bugsy Sailor, him and Bugsy go watch a sunrise.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, the
you know,
Sugarloaf episode, Bugsy walks past him in that. So
yeah,
I think that was Bugsy said that was his first time on screen for that show. But yeah.
right. Yeah, there actually in the last season there was an episode where they filmed part of it at Marquette Mountain,
Right.
and
Yep.
they were casting extras, and my wife and I were gonna sign up to do it, but I was like gonna have to take work off and stuff, and
Oh,
we
jeez.
it just didn't work out for us, to have to rearrange everything to go. I think it would have been like walking by in the background with like a snowboard or something.
Yeah, out
But,
on through the window on the mountain while they're
yeah,
inside.
right.
So,
But it would have been cool, could have been on
yeah.
IMBD.
Yep. Nice. Cool.
Yeah, we'll have
Well,
to
I
keep
don't
talking
think.
about that and add to our list. And
Mhm.
I think
Yeah.
depending on when we talk next, I think the warm up here, there'll hopefully be some more activity going on outside, and
Yep.
yeah, and I think too we can talk more about maybe some I don't know, like a whole episode or like a segment or something, and kind of running through some lists of things, or like favorite
Oh yeah.
top 10 places to check out that I don't know, depending on what we kind of got onto some of the cool little unique touristy spots tonight.
Mhm.
I think that's a cool theme. I mean, tourist season will be starting soon enough, so
Yeah. Yeah. It could be. Well, I kind of my biking kind of sticks to just Marquette and Nagani-Ishpeming, but top 10. Yeah, there's trails, lots of trails, places to kayak.
yeah, I think that'd be cool, because I think there's a lot that aren't. I think there's a lot of underrated ones, and in both those things and other other types of attractions too. So
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to just getting out and experiencing some stuff myself, and then I can talk about that too.
right, yeah, I was hoping by hiking the Songbird Trail tonight, I'd experience some more songbirds than just the chickadees. But it was
No.
kind of like,
Well, there's that marsh, Chocolate Bayou, has a bird trail. That's kind of
yeah,
why that was built over there. So that's a good spot. I don't
that's
know.
a cool spot.
I don't know when those birds start showing up, but I think they got some like warblers and stuff over there. If we even get them.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
That's a pretty pretty big area for wildlife and birds. It's kind of a little. I know for a lot of the migratory birds that kind of follow the shorelines, that's kind of a little area of refuge there. Actually, a handful of years ago, I brought a group of students there, and we planted some red pines
Oh yeah,
as part of the like in cooperation with the land conservancy there. But yeah, well, hopefully the weather warms up here and we can.
And I'm sure there's some local guests we can probably brainstorm to have on too.
Right. Yeah.
Pepper them with some questions. Yeah. And I haven't even gotten into talking about bourbon either. I've been over the long winter. I've enjoyed doing some bourbon hunting.
Okay.
One of,
I've been
and so
watching a
that's
guy on. I think he's primarily on. I think he makes TikTok videos, but he's on like YouTube Shorts, and
okay.
he's a bourbon hunter. I don't know how he came into my feed, but he did, and so I always watch his videos, and so I've learned more. There were a couple types I enjoyed before, but I've learned a lot just watching this
Yeah.
guy, and yeah, I have some thoughts on bourbon too, Dan. So maybe maybe we can do an episode about bourbon and craft beer here.
We might have to do the bourbon episode in person and sample some bourbon, because one of the most interesting ones I've found recently was made in Michigan.
Oh, cool.
It's New Holland.
Okay.
It's called Walleye Run. It's actually a malted rye, which
Ooh.
I didn't expect the taste of it to be what it is, which is like a malty sweetness. And
Yeah.
then rye has usually got a little bit of spice to it.
Right.
But it's not like anything else I've ever had. And
Yeah, malty is not typically a term you use for describing a bourbon, but that
it's a
sounds unique.
7-year malted rye Walleye Run. You can't beat the name. It's a really cool bottle it comes in too.
Yeah.
And you can get it at Meijer. So
That's part of the fun, is finding a cool label or a cool bottle. So
right. And the problem I have now is the one I have is gone, so I have to get another one. So
yeah, I like this idea. Maybe depending on what's going on, maybe next time that's what we gotta focus on.
cool. All right. Yeah, I don't think we're gonna ever run out of things to talk about. So hopefully hopefully we'll have some listeners who enjoy listening to it.
Hopefully. I know we've gotten a few listens here, so hopefully people are relating to something and maybe learning something, or yeah. Well, good talking.
Nice. Yeah.
Until next time.
All right. Sounds good. I'll be in touch and talk to you later.